The world was orange. Not the friendly orange of a sunset, but a malevolent, choking orange that clawed at my throat and stung my eyes. It wasn't just a color, it was a texture, a weight, a presence that pressed in from all sides, suffocating me. Inside the steel belly of the tank, the air vibrated with the roar of the storm, a primal scream that echoed the panic rising in my chest. Each breath felt thick, gritty, like swallowing handfuls of sand. The lights flickered, casting dancing shadows that mocked my fear, turning familiar instruments into grotesque, looming figures. Visibility was non-existent. The viewport was a swirling canvas of ochre, a blank testament to the fury raging outside. My fingers fumbled with the comms, uselessly trying to pierce the static. A cold dread seeped into my bones. We were alone. Cut off. Buried alive in a metal coffin hurtling towards an unknown fate. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drummer trying to escape the suffocating silence that followed each failed attempt to contact command. I closed my eyes, trying to conjure an image, any image, to anchor me to reality, to pull me back from the precipice of despair. But all I saw was orange, the unrelenting, oppressive orange that threatened to consume me whole. Then, a sharp, metallic tang filled the air, a smell I knew too well. The emergency oxygen. A wave of nausea washed over me, a physical manifestation of the realization that time was running out. The tank, my sanctuary, had become my tomb. The storm, a monstrous beast, was slowly, inexorably, devouring us. The scent of lavender always brought her back. It wasn't a sophisticated perfume, just a simple, homespun sachet she kept tucked in her apron pocket. Lavender and flower dust, a combination as uniquely hers as the calloused hands that kneaded dough into miracles. I remember sitting on the worn wooden stool in her kitchen, the sun streaming through the gingham curtains, turning the dust motes into dancing diamonds. She'd be humming some forgotten tune, her brow furrowed in concentration as she rolled out the pastry for her famous apple pie. The aroma would fill the small room, a comforting blanket against the world's sharp edges. Grandma Lena. Her strength was a quiet, unwavering force, a bedrock upon which I built my own resilience. She'd seen hardship, weathered storms far fiercer than this sandstorm, and emerged with her spirit unbroken. She taught me the language of the earth, the secrets whispered by the wind, the resilience of a single seed pushing through cracked concrete. She showed me how to find beauty in the ordinary, how to savor the small moments, how to hold on to hope when the world felt like it was crumbling around you. Her hands, gnarled and worn with age, were the safest place I knew. One particular memory surfaces now, clear as spring water. I was maybe 7 years old, terrified of a thunderstorm that raged outside our little farmhouse. The wind howled like a banshee, the rain lashed against the windows, and the thunder shook the very foundations of the house. I ran to her, burying my face in her apron, sobbing uncontrollably. She didn't dismiss my fear, didn't tell me to be brave. Instead, she held me close, her arms a warm, comforting circle around me. She sang to me, a lullaby in a language I didn't understand but felt deep in my soul. And slowly, gradually, the fear subsided, replaced by a sense of peace, of unwavering security. She showed me that even in the midst of the storm, there was always love, always shelter, always hope. That strength, that quiet resilience, is what I need now. The radio crackled, spitting static and distorted pleas for help from other units caught in the storm. Orders were useless. Command had gone blind. We were on our own. Inside the tank, the air grew thick, each breath a conscious effort. Sweat plastered my uniform to my skin. Sergeant Miller, usually a pillar of stoicism, ran a trembling hand over his shaved head, leaving a glistening trail. Ramirez, the youngest of us, hyperventilated in the corner, his eyes wide and unfocused. I tried to focus on the instruments, on the dwindling oxygen levels displayed on the small screen. Numbers, cold and clinical, were all I had left to cling to. But even they seemed to mock me, counting down our doom. Then Miller did something unexpected. He started to sing. A low, mournful tune, a gospel hymn his grandmother used to sing. It was a song of hope, of redemption, a stark contrast to the suffocating reality that pressed in on us. Ramirez stopped hyperventilating, drawn in by the melody. I found myself humming along, the lyrics a lifeline in the swirling darkness. The singing lasted for what felt like an eternity, a desperate act of defiance against the inevitable. As the oxygen levels plummeted further, Miller's voice grew weaker, but he didn't stop. He sang until his voice was a raspy whisper, until his eyes glazed over, and he slumped against the wall, unconscious. Ramirez started to sob, a raw, guttural sound that echoed in the confined space. I wanted to join him, to give in to the despair that threatened to consume me. But something held me back. Maybe it was the memory of Miller's unwavering gaze, maybe it was the echo of his song, or maybe it was just plain stubbornness. I crawled over to Miller, checking for a pulse. Faint, but there. I ripped open my canteen, pouring the last drops of water over his face. He sputtered, coughed, and opened his eyes, a flicker of recognition in their depths. "Don't give up on me, kid," he croaked, his voice barely audible. "Don't you dare give up." His words were a spark, igniting a fire within me. I grabbed Ramirez by the shoulders, shaking him roughly. "We're not done yet," I yelled, my voice hoarse. "We're getting out of here." I don't know where the strength came from, but I found it. I started banging on the hatch with a wrench, a rhythmic, desperate call for help. The metal rang out in the suffocating silence, a tiny beacon in the storm. We were trapped, running out of air, but we were still alive. And as long as we were alive, there was still hope. Now, years later, the desert still haunts my dreams. The sand, the wind, the suffocating darkness. I see Miller's face, hear his song, feel the weight of his body against mine as I dragged him through the storm, after the rescue team finally dug us out. He lived miraculously. Ramirez didn't fare so well. The trauma left him broken, unable to return to duty. Last I heard, he was living with his parents, medicated and lost. The nightmares are always the same. I'm back in the tank, the air growing thin, the sand pressing in on all sides. I wake up gasping for breath, my heart pounding, my body drenched in sweat. I avoid crowds, confined spaces. The subway is a torture chamber. Elevators are miniature coffins. I need open spaces, fresh air, the constant reassurance that I can breathe. I tried therapy for a while. Talked about the guilt, the survivor's guilt that gnaws at me constantly. Why me? Why did I get to live when others didn't? The therapist listened patiently, offered platitudes, prescribed medication. But nothing seemed to work. The desert was always there, waiting for me in the shadows. I pushed everyone away. My wife, my friends, my family. I couldn't bear to be close to anyone, knowing that I carried this darkness within me. They couldn't understand. They hadn't been there. Now I live a solitary life, on the coast, the ocean a constant presence. The sound of the waves is soothing, a counterpoint to the howling wind of the desert. I spend my days walking on the beach, collecting shells, watching the sun rise and set. It's a quiet existence, a peaceful existence, but it's a lonely one. Sometimes, I see other veterans, their eyes haunted, their faces etched with the same pain that I carry. We exchange knowing glances, a silent acknowledgement of the shared burden. We are the walking wounded, the survivors of a war that never truly ends. I still carry the wrench, the one I used to bang on the hatch. It's a reminder of that day, a reminder of the desperation, the fear, the hope. I keep it polished, clean, a tangible link to a past I can never escape. It sits on my bedside table, next to a faded photograph of Miller, his face creased with a smile, his eyes full of life. He's gone now, finally succumbing to a heart weakened by the ordeal. I attended his funeral, stood at his graveside, and whispered a silent thank you. He saved my life. He gave me hope when there was none. And I will never forget him. The desert may still haunt my dreams, but so does his song. And sometimes, that's enough to keep me going. Block 5. The grinding finally ceased. Silence, thick and absolute, descended. It was more terrifying than the storm. The tank felt impossibly small, a metal coffin buried alive. My lungs screamed, a burning protest against the void. I coughed, tasting blood and dust. Hope, that fragile ember, threatened to extinguish. Then a sound. Faint, muffled, but undeniably there. Scraping. Metal on metal. Above. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the suffocating silence. I strained, listening, willing it to continue. The scraping grew louder, more insistent. It was deliberate, purposeful. Someone was out there. Hello? My voice was a raspy whisper, barely audible. Is anyone there? More scraping. Then a clang. A heavy, metallic clang that resonated through the tank, vibrating in my bones. Light, a sliver at first, then a blinding flood, pierced the darkness as the hatch above was wrenched open. I shielded my eyes, gasping for air that tasted like salvation. A figure silhouetted against the swirling sand leaned into the opening. It was Omar. His face was etched with worry, his eyes red-rimmed and bloodshot. He reached down, his hand outstretched. Liam! We found you! Come on, quickly! I grabbed his hand, his grip strong and reassuring. He hauled me out of the tank, and I stumbled, my legs weak and unsteady. The storm had subsided to a furious gale, the air thick with sand, but it was fresh, breathable. I gulped it down, feeling life flood back into my veins. Around me, I saw the rest of the team, their faces massed against the sand, their eyes filled with relief. They rushed forward, patting me on the back, offering water and support. How did you find me? I managed to croak, my throat raw. Omar pointed towards the horizon, where a faint, shimmering line could be seen through the dust. The signal. Your emergency beacon. It was weak, almost lost in the storm, but Hannah picked it up. She saved your life, Liam. I looked at Hannah, her face obscured by her scarf, but I could see the concern in her eyes. I nodded, my voice failing me. Thank you, I whispered, the words inadequate but heartfelt. We made our way back to the camp, the wind whipping around us, the sand stinging our faces. The storm had ravaged the camp, tents torn, equipment scattered, but the sight of the flickering lanterns and the warmth of the makeshift shelter was a welcome beacon. Later, huddled around a small fire, wrapped in blankets, I watched the storm rage outside. The others were quiet, exhausted but relieved. The experience had shaken us all, but it had also forged a deeper bond. As the night wore on, the storm slowly began to dissipate. The wind died down, the sand settled, and the first rays of dawn painted the sky with streaks of orange and gold. I walked out of the shelter and stood on the crest of a dune, looking out at the vast, desolate landscape. The desert stretched before me, an endless expanse of sand and rock scarred by the storm. It was a harsh, unforgiving place, but it was also beautiful, in its own stark and desolate way. I thought about my father, about his obsession with this place, about his disappearance. Had he faced this same fury, this same terrifying isolation? Had he felt the same despair, the same fleeting hope? Then I remembered the artifact, the small, intricately carved stone I had found in the tank. I reached into my pocket and pulled it out, turning it over in my hands. It felt warm, almost alive. As the sun rose higher, casting its golden light across the desert, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A faint inscription on the base of the stone, almost invisible to the naked eye. I squinted, trying to decipher the ancient symbols. Hannah joined me, her eyes keen and perceptive. She studied the inscription for a moment, then gasped. Liam, she said, her voice hushed with awe. This is a map. A map to a hidden oasis. My father would have talked about it, but I never knew if it were true. I looked at her, my heart pounding. The oasis. The place my father had been searching for. The key to understanding his obsession, his disappearance. It's close, Hannah said, pointing towards the west. Just beyond the dunes. I looked out at the horizon, my eyes filled with a newfound determination. The desert had tried to claim me, to bury me alive, but I had survived. I had found the artifact, the map. And I knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within my soul, that my journey was far from over. The desert held its secrets close, but I was ready to face them. I was ready to follow in my father's footsteps, to unravel the mysteries of this ancient land. I was ready to find the oasis, and perhaps, finally, find peace. The sun climbed higher, bathing the desert in its golden light, and I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the dry, clean air. It was a new day, a new beginning. And I was ready to face it.